Hello and welcome back, and this is going to be part 2 of my Synology Moments versus QNAP QuMagie photo recognition software comparison. That is a hell of an intro, isn't it? Today we're using the mobile side of things. Part 1 is when we looked at the desktop versions, when we were looking at it with Google Chrome, not a client, but still using a PC desktop client. And today we're going to use the mobile apps. We're on my mobile phone here, and we're going to be utilizing the QuMagie application there and the Synology Moments app there. We're going to look at them both, and we're not going to really be able to split screen this, unfortunately, to show you both of their user interfaces side by side, but what I'm going to do is focus on one than the other, and then we're going to look at what they can both do, what they both can't do, and where the advantages are for each individual brand. So let's start off this time with the QNAP application. If we go into QuMagie here, we can see straight away that it's going to find different NASes on my local area network, much like most of their apps. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the user interface here, because a lot of QNAP's applications use a very similar system of settings and more, where you're setting it up for the first time. And what we really want to do is go straight into the NAS. Obviously, I've already authenticated my login information already, but otherwise, when you're logging into it for the first time, it will ask you to double check that that information is correct, and obviously authenticate it to give you access to the NAS. Now, right now we're looking at just the raw photos area of QNAP's QuMagie application. If we click this top one here, it's worth highlighting that this photo image here, if we look at the details of it, we can see here that it is a GIF. And straight away, as much as I like the QuMagie application, and I do actually think the AI core is the better of the two, I'm a little disappointed that we're not seeing a playable GIF here in the window. Now, there will be other details further along, but for now, let's move forward and first look at show tagged people. So we can see from here that there are no tagged people in this photo at the moment, and I'll get onto that later on. We can enable 360 panorama mode if we're using VR specs or VR, but obviously we're not using that. Or we can switch straight away to the VR mode in full or Google Cardboard mode, or we can go back and just get rid of all of those modes entirely. And again, very bespoke, not everyone's going to use that, but still, it's nice to have those options there. And the same goes for most of these photos. If we scroll down, I believe I've been tagged in this photo already. So if we go into here and show the tagged people, we can see that 3 people have been tagged in here previously, 2 of which I did in my previous video. So we can scroll all of those photos, and I'll be honest, the response time and the loading of those photos is very, very fast if I scroll nice and quickly. And I think there was about 800 to 900 photos in this album. So thumbnail generation there, exceptionally fast. And we can move along, select other photos very quickly. And it does seem there's my cat's butt there. They seem to be very responsive indeed, all the way through to the zooming as well. If we go for a nice big photo with a lot going on, maybe we can test the zoom capabilities of the application here. Let's go with something outdoorsy. Scroll along here, find something a bit of detail. There's a Christmas tree. So if we zoom in on that tree, we can see that what we're looking at right now is a lower res version of that photo. When this original photo, if the detail will show us, is pretty large in terms of resolution. I believe that photo is at least a couple of thousand. There we go, 3000 by 4000 pixels. So again, we are looking at a low-res version in this application, but we can, of course, download photos. If we look at this one, we can have a look at photos there, and there's lots of options too. So again, we've got those options ready available. We can look at some more information with regard to the photo, what it was taken on, when it was taken, and more, and we can make our way back. Now, this is obviously just the raw photos there, and we can look at shared photos if we want. We can also change a lot of the options manually there about the preset requirement. And at the top there, we can look and search through photos. We can search, maybe search by people's tags, names, and more. And there's even more files and collaboration options there. And once again, it's a very responsive application. Of course, I am using this on the network and not the internet, which might make a difference when accessing remotely, but at the moment, it does stand up very well indeed. Now, carrying on, if we go to the second tab, we can look at the albums. if we select the tab here for the albums at the bottom, we can make our way through to what makes QMagie and indeed most AI-powered photo applications so interesting. That idea of things being broken down into people, things, and other categories. Now, I'm going to lead with something good before I lead to something I was a little underwhelmed by. So if we look at the things area, we can see that all of the AI-powered things have been recognized. So if we make our way along and look at the photos of animals, these are files where the file name wasn't the word animal. As we can see, it was MV, IMG, etc. These are photos where the AI-powered core has recognized that these are animals, and the same goes for all the rest of them. And again, we are seeing very, very fast responses, so you've got to give them credence for just how fast these are being generated. Of course, these have already been indexed by the app in the background, but still, nevertheless, it's great that the application can still pull this information very, very quickly. So we can go along there and look at other photos, flick between very quickly, trying to really push this application to work as hard as possible. And again, these are all low-res photos. There's a big pile of Christmas socks. If you've ever lived in Britain, that's what Christmas looks like, ladies and gentlemen. The application itself is very responsive. If we go to the people section, again, I've labelled a few more people there, and we can go into them. Let's throw myself under the bus first, and there's all the photos of me. Same goes for searching for people. You can use those same search functionalities. And for those that aren't aware, there's Eddie the Web Guy, and indeed, that's the Span Christmas gathering there. As we can see, a bunch of people, some of which you may know, some of which you may not. But again, lots of photos there, ready and accessible, with the tags immediately apparent. Now, as good as this section is, this is where one of the few things about this application kind of annoyed me. Because all of these people have been tagged, and that's great. But that's only because I've tagged them on the desktop client. You may remember that most of these people are people that I tagged in part 1 of this video. You can't actually tag new people in the app in the way that you would expect. In the client application, it would have listed everyone you've named and all the faces that have yet to be categorized. And this is something not present in the QNAP QMagie application. Even if we make our way over to a photo here involving people, let's find a photo along the way. Let's find a terrible photo of me. This photo here, if we look at the tags, we can see that it hasn't tagged me. So, what if we wanted to tag me? We go into details. The best we can do is rate the application and change and color code it. We can't actually tag a face within the app. And it's not vital, don't get me wrong, but that to me seems like something this app should feature. But moving away from something negative, let's go to something positive. And the fact that you can browse multimedia folders on your NAS from within the app, to me, is a big deal. It means that although you are going to utilize the photo tagging and the subject tagging and more, you want to be able to browse folders and files on your NAS as you would any file manager. So it gives you the option of having that tool built into the application, which to me is ever more impressive. So all in all, pretty good. But the fact that it doesn't play GIFs and the fact that the photo tagging cannot be done and named within the app but relies heavily on the client for the web browser is a little bit of a downer. So let's log out of QMagie and now move into the Synology Moments application. Now, it's worth highlighting straight away that I don't like to start on a negative. I actually think the Synology Moments application is genuinely incredible. And what I'm about to highlight here is very much my own problem and not yours. But I am a big fan of both live photos and GIFs. If I take a good photo, as you can see on screen, I will convert it with the export option of my Google phone into a GIF. I like that because sometimes if you're dealing with some instances, a 1 or 3 second GIF can be just as powerful, if not more, than a photo. And the ability to convert photos into GIFs using live photo mode, for those that aren't aware, that's when a photo is taken with a small frame-by-frame video to back it up on iOS and Android platforms. The idea of converting to GIFs is ever attractive to me. And despite the fact that the Synology Moments app plays GIFs, which to me is incredibly good, they don't display great on the app when they're on bulk. And I know, as highlighted, this is something that's more of my problem than anyone else's, because most people will not have such a wide array of GIFs in their album as I do. But it's still a little disheartening that the application is struggling with so many GIFs on screen at once. But once again, my problem, not yours. But if we click on an individual photo, we're already left with the feeling of unresponsiveness here. Now, I've already clicked on the top left GIF here, and what we're going to see is the GIF being loaded up by the app. And there you go, it's running, it's playing a GIF. So straight away, I am loving this. And I'm also loving just how terrible my friends look in this GIF. But with the information that's readily available, there's less. And don't get me wrong, you can use the PhotoStation application to get loads of information about your photos that you take. And of course, Synology are introducing Synology Photos, which is going to integrate Synology Moments and PhotoStation in one, which should hopefully resolve this. But right now, the Synology Moments app doesn't give quite enough information about photos, but serious kudos for playing that GIF file. Now, we can share a file, something that was possible in the QMagie app, but I think it's done better here on Synology Moments with support and far more intuitive sharing there. If we go to the top right, we can add or download the file directly. And again, something that wasn't immediately apparent on the QMagie app. So that's another reason why the Moments app seems to be doing very well indeed. If we exit this GIF, I've also got to highlight that if I scroll down, even just a small amount down this list of photos, as soon as we move away from these GIFs, the app runs at perfect speed. It's just those GIFs that are letting it down. If we move away from the GIFs, however, and move down, suddenly everything becomes very responsive, with some live cache action clearly happening. So if we select another individual photo, let's go for another picture of a kitten here. Here we go. We can alter this photo if we want, because now we have tools that can edit the photo a little way, everything from rotating the image better, cropping the image, and redefining the colours and improving the colours to sort them out there in the background. We've got more information, as you can see, with regards to where photos are taken and how, but it's also worth highlighting there was still more kind of intense photo information on the QMagie app, something that might be resolved with Synology Photos. At the top right, once again, we can download or create sub-albums within our device if we so choose, and pretty much scrolling through photos is nice, quick, fast. We can open up, we can scroll in. That might be a bad example. Let's go for something. And these photos do seem that little bit crisper, but there is a trick there, because despite the fact that these photos appear a great deal more crisp, they're not quite as crisp because we're not allowed to zoom any further. They do appear a great deal crisper, but we're still looking at a cached version of the file that's been ever so slightly reduced. Not much, but just a pinch. And the fact that we can't reduce any further is a little bit a clear indication of that. But let's move on to the recognition. Now, the recognition side of things, we can move first into the Places tab, which I like is a separate tab available on screen here with all of those geolocations tagged and recorded as we go. So if we look along here, we can look at different areas. We can look at Norbiton. There was a pub that was for the Christmas party, as mentioned. And again, there's that same photo displayed here, but listed as a location as well as people and subjects. Subjects tab, everything is running nice and responsively. And we can zoom straight in and have a look at different things. My God, they tasted incredible. Well done, Lindsay. And of course, we can move into the People's tab, which for me is another area where the Moments application takes an advantage. Because in my video, I only tagged a few people, as you can see here. But we can still access the untagged database, something that wasn't available in the QNAP application there. So for example, if we want to tag this gentleman, and this is JD or my mate James. So if we go here, we can either click there, and then we can name this person. So we can name them James. And it's great to have that option within the app. And then boom, James is now tagged. Same as before. If we find another photo of James, there he is. We can click there, select James, merge the albums, and boom, we have those photos of James. Incredibly responsive, but just like the QNAP one, but it's nice to have that option to be able to tag people readily and easily. If we search for people and put Robbie and James, I'm not sure there is any photos of me and James. Let's go for Robbie and Katie. We can see that it's now showing pictures of me and Katie, which to me is a big deal. The fact that you want to search for people in tandem, you want to add people together all in one album. So adding more names, as long as there's a photo with all those people, it will be displayed. And fair play, that wasn't something that I tested on the QNAP app. Go into people, move forward, go into the search. We're searching for people. Use all criteria, and we shall search for, let's have a look. Then we can search for people, so we can search for Robbie and Katie. And we can do a search, and there we go, we have that. But it felt a little bit more intuitive adding the names as we did on that Synology application. It's still very good, and we can still look certain tags. We can look for more, lots of criteria. We can even search there if we remove the tagging criteria that we created earlier. And this time we're going to search for just the terms. Robbie and Katie. We can see it didn't find results. So fair play to the Synology platform for giving us that ability. Now, we have other options too. You can have a look about the AI that Moment supports to do a little bit more with your photos. So before we click that button and find out what that is, let's look at some of the settings options. We can create a photo backup that allows the photos on your phone to be constantly backed up to Moment and indexed with that AI support. You can check the upload queue as well as change the settings of cache management, of course, where of course we're deciding how much is going to be stored locally and on the NAS to keep things nice and fast, as well as how much of your 4G or Wi-Fi is going to be utilized. You can even look at the playback quality, so you can change the output, which will obviously help with regard to those larger GIFs and larger photos. On the QNAP application, moving back, we can have a look at their settings, with their settings being a little bit more generalized and not hugely as deep, which is unusual given that the QNAP library of applications is generally far more configurable compared with Synology in most cases. We can look at the view and playback settings, and we can look at the different options with the resolutions and how we want them reduced or maximized. So we can have it so that the photos are produced in their highest format off the bat, but these settings are deactivated by default. Sorry, looking at the screen there, getting slightly distracted. So let's take a look at what the AI can do for us, as they put it. So let's have a look and click Start. And then Moment is going to pick out photos of you and show results. So it's going to go in the background and sort through. And that's quite a nice extra touch. The fact that it's going through and sorting photos there in the background. While it does that, let's talk about these two applications. Let's talk about what exactly they can do, what they can't do, and which one is best for you, because neither one of them is intrinsically better than the other. The QNAP gave us very fast responsiveness. It was probably the speedier of the two when it comes to individual clickings and sorting through. It also arrived with the ability to browse through folders on the NAS, which you might want the option to choose between as you move forward. Also, there was more information with regard to the photos you took, how they were taken, and lots more information about them with regards to more intrinsic photography. Sorry, wrong example there. Let's go for that one there. To get more information about what was taken and how. It didn't play GIFs, which was a little bit disappointing, and the fact that we couldn't tag photos of people within the application was a little disappointing. Also, the settings options were a little thin on the ground compared with the QNAP, with the Synology Moments application. There was a greater degree of things being recognized on the QNAP app, and I think potentially a better series of photos being cached in this way for us to zoom in a great deal further than we could on the Synology option. With the Synology application, it has to be said, the fact that it could play those GIFs was definitely advantageous, although there was a clear slowdown like now when you tried to play, or at least browse, GIFs. Of course, when you went into them, you could get a lot more information and play that GIF, thanks to its support of GIFs and live photos for iOS and Android. On top of that, the People tab, ability to tag people that you hadn't already tagged via the app, is hugely advantageous, coupled with the fact that the search criteria was a great deal smoother to search for multiple people at once within the app, an often asked feature in the early days of Synology Moments application. Also, the Things support, although good, paled in comparison to its support of geolocational data and recognizable landmarks, which is always good. And right now we can see that we've got the results for our check through there, where we can have a look at photos that it has made changes to improve them if they're blurry or the color distorted or too hazy. And ultimately, between these two applications, I think a lot of it is what it comes down to is how you want to interact with your photos. If you want this to be purely a photography tool, and a tool that you as a photographer are going to use to share your photos with family and friends on your phone or tablet, and want to access those photos as quickly as possible in as many ways as possible, the QMagie application wins for me, because it displayed all the information that you'd already catalogued elsewhere in a fast, responsive manner. The Synology Moments application was a little bit more diverse. It gave us the ability to support different kinds of what we deem to be phone media, with live photos, GIFs, and of course photos too, as well as more configuration of your photos later down the line while using just the mobile app and not relying on a desktop client, something I never thought I would have said in a Synology versus QNAP comparison. And ultimately, both of these apps are first-class photo cataloging apps, and I hope highlighting the differences between them has helped you decide which NAS you should be buying for your photo collection, both old and new. Do let me know what you think about this video. If you've enjoyed it, click like. And if you want me to make more, definitely click like, because it helps me know what you guys like. And of course, if you want to learn more, click subscribe. I'll try and see if I can do a third part of this series of videos featuring Photo Station on both of the different platforms, as well as obviously making comparisons when Synology Photos is released. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Do subscribe to NAS Compares and click the links in the description to keep me going, and I will see you next time.